Alright, yeah, we're gonna make a lo-fi beat today. Gonna try some minor chords, maybe some sevenths. The seventh chord is basically the whatever triad, whatever major or minor triad you want. So the first note in that key, or the first note, sorry, the root note of that chord, and then the third and the fifth, so that's the triad, and then you add the seventh. It kind of has an effect of mellowing out a chord. Like here's C major, A major, and then just adds a bit of a question mark in the chord. So it can be kind of nice for lo-fi, seeing as lo-fi really is something that is, well, jazz has basically been a big influence for lo-fi. So let's see what we got. I added that at the end. So my playing is going to be way off because there's a large amount of latency when I'm recording these videos. Or I'm just bad, to be honest. That's also very possible. Bum, 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 bum. So, I hate the sound of this instrument. Chords are cool. They're not actually that special. But I think this is a good example because you can make a pretty dope beat even with just some kind of basic chords. Like, especially for lo-fi, that really works because usually the purpose of lo-fi is to not really distract actually that much, to provide a vibe, an ambience, something that you can kind of just be in while you study or while you do stuff. Or in the background of a lot of like YouTube videos, YouTube channels, and stuff like that. I actually made a whole bunch of them for this one YouTube channel that I was working with. So it's like, it's a good thing to know how to make, but actually the point of the melodies within a lo-fi is to be like pleasant, but not like super catchy to the ear. Like, yeah, you don't want to be too catchy. So if you ever want to access one of the synthesizers, so Logic comes with many, and you can get more. Like you see here, I have Arcade and Surge. These are not provided by Logic. Surge is free, actually, I think. Pretty sure Surge is free. And it's a cool synthesizer. Arcade is not, but like you can see like these are pretty much all the stock ones, the ones down here. This is like, this comes with Logic. So Alchemy has a bunch of stock sounds. Like each one of these, most of these will have a bunch of stock sounds within them. But let's say I'm here and I'm looking for an instrument. I can go into synthesizer and I can go into percussion, let's say. And here's all the percussion they're suggesting to me. And each one of these is being, this is important to understand, each one of these is being generated by one of these synths. So I press on abstract mallets and I check here, and this is actually being made by Sculpture. Sculpture looks like this, you might recognize it. And that's great. African Mallets is by the ES2. Big Kalimba is by Sculpture. Breathing Vibes, Sculpture. Ooh, Sculpture. No, that one's by Alchemy, okay? Alchemy's a big one with a whole lot. But my point being, I don't know how they've designed this system, like Logic, to suggest these specific synthesizer sounds, because this isn't everything in Logic. Like, this is being made, this is all they suggest, okay, for percussion. But now, let's do something. If I go into Alchemy, which is generating dark mallet layers, if I go into Alchemy, I can then click on here. This is the setting we're currently using. And then I can go and look through all their presets that they have within Alchemy. Now, there's one I really like in Gozadera Latina. If you go into there and you go into mallets, there's one called Hammered Wood. Actually, all of these are good, but I've used Hammered Wood many times for like a lead and like Afrobeats or dance hall and stuff like that. So let's hear what that sounds like. Sounds like a mallet, sounds like percussion. It's even in the mallet section in Alchemy. However, it is not in the percussion section of synthesizer, the instruments that Logic is suggesting as synthesizer. So this is important to note, and it's not in their mallets either. This is important to note. If you are just selecting your instruments from your library, you are not seeing all the possible instruments that are even stock within Logic, that are just like stock Logic instruments. It's designed to look like it is, but it's not. I don't know why they decided to do that. But basically, you can go like, okay, and in each one of these, there's tons of things. Okay? So it's like, oh, there's lots of choices. But there's actually more than that. Because I've gone through pretty much every single one of these categories and listened to each one of these things at some point, looking for a sound or looking for something new and interesting. But it's important to understand that you have the power to go in and select which synthesizer you want to look through, and then look through everything being generated by that synthesizer. Because if you just go into synthesizer in the library and you select, their pads, you'll hear like 50 pads, great. And they're all being generated by different synths, great. There are more than 50 pads in Logic. I just made that number up, but let's say you find 50 in there. There's probably like 200 pads if you go into Alchemy and then check all their pads. And then if you go into ES2, ESP, into Sculpture, into like some of these wouldn't have any pads, but a bunch of them do. So my point being, once you realize that in Alchemy, and for me the big ones that I love are Alchemy, ES2, and Sculpture. Those three synths have so many great presets in them, and you can access a whole bunch of instruments that you won't find in the library. Important to note. That was a side note. So that's what we're going to do today. If we're looking for a cool sound for our lead chords, we're not going to go into their library. We're going to pick, here, let's pick Alchemy. Oh, the other cool thing is you can open it up. You could open it up and you can look through in here. Or if you click here, like next to it, now in your library, where your library usually is, now you're seeing everything within Alchemy. So now all of these categories, anything in any of these categories now is being generated solely by Alchemy. You've basically sorted it so that you are only looking at things generated by Alchemy. Is it Alchemy or Alchemy? Tell me. But then if you want to go back and see your regular library, you can just like select on a different instrument and then come back to it. And now look, we're back in the usual library with bass, drum kit, electronic drum kit. But here, check this out. You go boom. Now you're looking at just what's being generated by Alchemy. So let's look through there. Basic. Let's go into the basic ones. Keys. Let's hear what they have in keys. Kind of a cool effect. Not my favorite sound. Not my least favorite sound either. Go into Alchemy again. There. Now. So here's a cool one. Old Fragile Vinyl Keys. It's in keys of basic of Alchemy. So do you see how many instruments there are? Like each one of these categories has a bunch of categories within them, which has a bunch of instruments within them. So Alchemy, ES2, and Sculpture, go and investigate those synths specifically. Like don't just take what they're giving you in the library, because that's not everything. You'll find a bunch of cool sounds. So let's hear what this sounds like. Let's add some classic piano. Okay. This thing is freezing. My CPU's dying. Okay, now it's a cooler sound than what we were starting with, but same chords. We're gonna bounce all this. I'm gonna add some low pass. Always listen back. Don't just take a quick look, because you can miss something when you're looking visually, but your ears should always pick it up. Yeah. Alright, let's make some drums. We're going to do this all in Logic, no samples. I know for a lot of people, they're curious how to make good drums without getting like a lo-fi pack or a hip-hop pack. Well, let's check our legacy. Older Logic, which I used for many years, so I know their kits pretty well. They had some cool kits. Cool kits, hip-hop 90s. Bit too much. So usually the difference between the kits you're getting in Logic and the stuff you're hearing in sample packs and why they pop more is pretty much always just they're compressed. Like within an inch of their life, they're so compressed. So let's hear this. So we should probably do another video on compression, because it's its own art form. But just for some basics here, the idea in this case with compression to match kind of the drum sounds you'll be hearing in radio hits and stuff is basically you just want to compress it a lot, which means the entirety of the sound is clear, in your face, and loud. Loud is the wrong word, because you can make something loud by turning up the volume, but the entirety of the sound is loud. Like when you play a snare drum with a stick in an actual room, that initial impact, that 1 second, like that millisecond impact is loud, and then it rings off and it gets quiet very quickly. But because we've been making music in DAWs for decades now, we've gotten more and more used to compressing them more and more, so that it's like the entirety of the sound, I don't know how to describe it, is compressed and loud. So we're going to compress this a bit. So to compress, it's already getting compressed a bit. The ratio isn't very much though, so we can make it. Basically, the ratio is controlling how much it's being compressed by, which leads to it being louder if the ratio is higher, but it's more complex than that. We really need to do a video just on compression, but here we go. So I don't want it like too much, because then, you see, that's a good example. This is the equivalent of when you hit that snare drum in a real room and you record it. If you make the entire thing the same loudness, including the tail, you get this. There's like the initial t, and then there's like a. Now if you reduce that, it's just the attack that's being compressed. So we don't want this. that doesn't, it almost loses power. Okay, so that's some quick alterations. So do we hear the difference? This is without the compressor. It's a start, but we're gonna layer a few of these. All right, we back. Sorry, I just had to do some stuff. Let's get back to it. So where were we? Ooh, yeah. Okay. Sounds like this needs a kick next. Let's see what we had in this kit. That's a knocky kick. So punchy, like there's a lot of, you're hearing the top end of the kick, not just the thud. Actually, yeah, the thud is actually not that strong, but it's a cool kick. It'll work for this. Let's try it. Okay, so we're trying something slightly different here. It was lagging too much when I was recording, but this is what I've come up with. I really wanted that do do cut do, and the key to that is that this third hit is not right on the grid. If you notice, it's not even, it's like I've just placed it where it felt right. So let's listen to this. Do do cut do. Gives it a bit of a swing, gives it that lo-fi feel. I also just added in these little kicks that I dropped the velocity, common trick. So we got our kick. Let's figure out some hats. We'll just stick with the same kit for now. It's cool to show. I know a lot of people use samples, like sample one shots, put them in Ultra Beat, whatever you want to do. I just wanted for these drums to show you guys, you know, like a good lo-fi beat can be made in Logic with just the Logic drums, in case you haven't found any good samples you like, or you're trying to learn more how to use these kits. So we'll stick with this kit for now. It's serving swell. Little bit of swing right at the end here, just to remind you that this beat overall should have that swinging feeling. You don't have to put swing everywhere, but if you put it in a few key moments, the entire beat will have that feeling. So sometimes I like adding a second layer of hats that just kind of a second of layer of hats can kind of just like fill it out. Usually one of them is playing a bit more of a steady thing, and the other one is actually playing stuff that comes in and out. But this one I'll drop a bit. I've also dropped out a bunch of the top end. So hats live in the top end. They live like 2K and up. It's a very high sound. But I'm dropping even a bit of it just to distinguish between the two, and also not so much to distinguish, actually. That's not accurate. I want the other one to be distinguished from this one. I don't actually need this one to pop out from the other one, because this one's filler. So it's to kind of dampen it a bit and let the other one pop out a bit more when they're playing together. So now we're going to take all of these, we're going to bounce them all together. Now remember, you still have all of these available to you. You just unmute them if you want to change anything. But what I want to try is I want to make these drums now. Nice flow, nice rhythm, good lo-fi drums. But I want them to also feel like they're taken from some old record. Do you know what I mean? Like I want them to feel a bit dirtier, older. So I'm gonna just take out a little bit. Here, let's listen. So I'm dropping the top and the very low and the very top because these are both elements that, as audio engineering and just in general technology has advanced, we have developed more and more accurate ways of playing low end and high end. That wasn't around in the 60s or 70s. So we are if you heard something made today, it would just have more very low and very high, and it wouldn't sound like it could be from that era because that, like, just go listen to like a 60s or a 70s song, just play it and then play a pop record from today, and you're just gonna be like, wow, one of these does not hit as strongly in the low end and the high end anywhere. It's just weaker, but it's weaker from like a purely objective kind of like the like across the frequency range, clarity and strength is weaker for sure. But then at the same time, the songs often feel very whole and together, as if they really were like recorded in a room, group of people. So there's somehow maybe a bit more cohesion to them. So there's nice things about both. Definitely, I think it's great that technology is advancing and that we can get better and better sounding stuff. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean that artists or producers or engineers were weaker then, but technology is advanced. So if we're trying to emulate that feeling, which is a lot of what lo-fi is, then there's little ways to do that. So what I've done here, just to try it out, because you still want it to hit. Yeah, the key with this kind of thing is you are not trying to make it authentically sound like it's from a bygone era, because then it will just feel weak in comparison to other stuff you hear. But you're trying to give the hint that it's that vibe. Like you're trying to make it feel like it's that vibe without actually making it weak. You still want it to hit. So I took out that top end, low and very low end, but then I've added a compressor. And basically, I mean, I just selected this preset FET Live drums, which I like for just beefing up drums and making them hit a lot harder. It's just compressing it quite a bit. Very quick attack, pretty slow release. Not a very high ratio, but lots of makeup. Huge amount of makeup. 8.5 dB. So what that's doing, here, let's hear it without it. So it's still very present drums that are really there in the mix, but still with that vintagey vibe. It's all about tricks. Because if you just straight up made authentic older drums, then they just wouldn't be able to compete with like other beats because they would just not hit as hard. So this is sounding cool. So in Symphony, Jam Pack Symphony Orchestra, there's some really cool horns. So this is a very simple melody line. And I want it simple on purpose. So what we're going to do though is we're going to drop a second one. And then let's affect this a bit. So I've brought, but here the reason I've put them on two separate tracks is I'm just getting the vibe. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have this feeling that I want to affect them separately, like do different things to them. So for now, I'm just going to affect this bottom. And I might not end up doing that, and then I can just bring them back together if they end up getting the same effect. So for this one, let's mess around with some stuff. I don't want it to be a clean sounding horn. Let's mess it up a bit. Add a flanger. That sounds nice. We'll add a bus, and we'll throw in some sort of delay. Let's try this. So if you ever see a plugin that's grayed out like this, it just means it's been bypassed. In case it's not clear, so this channel EQ that they put up here, you can always find it here. This is the same one. You could add multiple channel EQs, but they just kind of show you a quick graph, I guess, to look cool and to make things easier to see quickly what's going on with the EQ. But this channel EQ is this channel EQ. So you can open it here, or you can open it here. And when it's grayed out, when anything's grayed out, it just means it's been bypassed. You can just press this to hear what it's doing. I'm not really interested in the EQ they had on there. I'm just trying to mess with the sound a bit. So I kind of just want to hear what it would sound like with both of the same effects. So to do it quickly, I'll just copy that track. Yeah, I just want it a bit quieter. So I'll just leave it like that. Sounds good to me. Okay, so that's a quick look at lo-fi beats. Definitely a lot more you can do with that. You then have to copy it out and finish off the entire beat. I just like working in loops like this just to get the idea out there, and then I'll usually end up fleshing out the beat fully and adding more stuff to keep it interesting. But this is a good start. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching today. Leave a comment with anything else you'd like us to cover, and we'll be seeing you guys again next week. Peace.